With Darbus saved and the villagers satisfied, we journey to Lake Hylia. After unfreezing the river by gifting the Zoras a massive rock, we journey to Castletown at the behest of Rutella. Doing as she asked, we save her son, receiving the Zora armor in return. With this armor, we can now have safe passage to the Lakebed Temple. The Lakebed Temple, with its regal choral aesthetic, is just asking to be ignored. However, today, let's see what you couldn't miss. As soon as we entered the temple, we come across a group of stalactites. These rock formations are very odd if we compare them to their counterparts in the real world. What seems to be happening is that the surface tension and viscosity of water in the Zelda universe must be higher than what we see on Earth. This explains the funky stalactites we see in multiple Zelda games and why it is usually so hard to traverse water without outside assistance such as the Zora armor or the iron boots. Once we start getting this temple explored, we start to realize we need a source of water to open up many paths necessary to complete this dungeon. However, once we make it to the water source and achieve water flow, we notice it completely impedes the path we once took to reach it. This deterrent system must mean that during the time this temple was created, there was a Zora delinquency problem. This caused the Zora architects to create a system that wouldn't allow the water switch to be reached without the use of equipment such as the claw shot or the iron boots. However, years after the structure was abandoned, the Zora delinquents clearly made their way to this temple for a last act of defiance to turn off the flow, which is why we now need to turn it back on. Now that we got the gears turning on this dungeon, we can finally see how these ancient gears function and their purpose. Many of these machines seem to be used for traversal of the rooms we see in the water temple. However, this one specifically, with its 3 platforms in a triangular shape, clearly is foreshadowing the claw shot we will receive from the room it allows us to traverse to. While we attempt to acquire the claw shot, we run into the Deku toad. This creature with its fat lip has a very odd tendency. This toad utilizes its newly born children, which are still in their tadpole phase of metamorphosis, as soldiers. This is extremely odd, and while we know toads usually do not tend to their young after they are born, they at least usually take care of where they are born, which makes this toad putting her children on a battlefield extremely odd. Maybe their lack of care for their children comes from the carbon they would emit if they were left to live, or maybe even just the cowardice of not wanting to fight Link alone. Well, whatever it may be, it is extremely terrifying to see such a lack of emotion from this creature. As we reach the boss room, we find the dungeon guardian Morpheal. Clearly this boss is a far down the line descendant of Morpha with many enhancements to its survivability. This species clearly has adapted since its last encounter with Link, with it gaining a whole eel-like body to allow movement as opposed to being liquid in a pool like Morpha was before. However, with a whole new body to control, clearly Morpheal has not fully grasped how to utilize its old appendages in unison with the new. This is seen when Link is attached to Morpheal and while clearly is in range of their tentacles, is never grabbed due to this gross incompetence. And that is the end of today's video. If you enjoyed, good.